activist. I was an intern. They converted me full time, but then Facebook recruiter reached out for an interview, and basically I interviewed and I got the job. So then it's a combination of several factors. Obviously, it's luck that like the recruiter knows to reach out to me, and it's also it's especially lucky because my manager at Facebook used to be a PhD in political science as well. So he knows that most people in data science, they wouldn't think of political science PhD as the go-to for when they want to hire a data scientist. But because my manager was a political science PhD as well, he knew, and that's why like my team reached out to me. So that was a luck factor. The other is preparation, which is like my profile was a good fit to the team because of all the previous experience, but also because I made sure that I listed all of my experience on LinkedIn, and that's how people found out about me. Recruiting is a real challenge. Not obviously it's hard for students to find job, but for companies to find the right students as well. My team really struggled to find someone to hire, and really people just go on LinkedIn and search. There's no secret sauce to that. So make sure that you are known on the internet. Like make sure that you are searchable. Is like a way to increase the chance that lucky things happen to you.
That's great. Thank you. Good advice. So tell us, what's kind of a typical day like, and has it changed during COVID time for you?
Yeah, so thankfully, COVID really doesn't affect anything in the tech industries. In some ways, it actually makes it better with people having remote work options. So like we don't have to worry about the COVID factor much for Facebook. So my time is with the caveat that my position is quite unique. Data science is a very big field. My position is very unique, so I will talk about how my time is spent, but I also want to talk about like data scientists in general. So my team is an R&D team, meaning that we do both research but also like build real products. So my time is 30% technical modeling and coding, 30% writing and talking to people, convincing them to like pursue our ideas, and 30% is like reading and catching up on other people's idea. The typical day is more like that's a distribution of my time over a typical month. More like the days are like some days I do all technical, some days I do all writing, for example. So this is quite unique in the sense that most teams don't do both research and development like this. They either do pure research or they do pure development. So the time wouldn't be spent as evenly as like how my time is spent across the three tasks.
Very interesting. So you were kind enough to share with everybody registered a list of strategies to learn about data science and prepare for a career in data science. Is there anything else that you'd recommend to the students and postdocs who are on the call who want to work in data science to prepare?
Yeah, so on that list of things, I want to emphasize the first step, which is figure out what type of data scientist you want to be. The reason is like people say data science, but they don't know, but it can mean a lot of things, even from both from the employers and from the employee side. So it's very confusing and difficult if you just go on the internet and search for data science jobs, because it can mean like very different things. So you want to read the article that I sent, figure out what type of data scientist you want to be. And when you go ask people for advice, you also want to know what type of data scientist they are. So you make sure that you ask the right person. And then I also want to take some of the questions the participants sent over. So one question is, should I take stats and CS master? The answer is absolutely yes. The second question is, are humanists value, or like how are my social science skills transferable? So to be frank here, like your knowledge of social science actually does not transfer. So like I know a lot about like the relationship between democracy and economic growth. Like I use none of that anymore. So basically, to be completely clear, like I basically like 2 years of my PhD, I never use anymore. The part that I do use is the skills part, basically statistical modeling, survey methodology, and for the more humanities work, ethnography turns into like user experience research when you go into industry. So that goes back to the point of like you should take stats and CS masters because like those skills are 100% transferable. Yep, and that's it.
Thank you. So what is the employment outlook for the data science field that you are in, given the COVID crisis? Are you seeing impacts?
Yeah, as I mentioned, it's actually a lot easier to find job in tech nowadays. For example, Facebook now allows fully remote options, so you can work for Facebook without moving to the Bay Area. So yeah, I'm very thankful that not very much impacted by COVID.
That's terrific. Let me follow up now on a couple other questions that came through the registration and also invite folks to post their questions in the chat as we go.
Mm-hmm.
One question was, how did you find the transition from academia to industry?
So the transition was very easy to me. To some extent, like once you pass the interview, it means that you are a good fit for industry already. Like, otherwise, you wouldn't pass the interview. Because like during the interview, they wouldn't just evaluate your skills, but also like your business sense, your attitude, and your soft skills. So yeah, and the reason that it was easy for me, or like the reason why I was able to prepare well was, well, naturally I was curious about like business questions, the same way that I was curious about like social science questions. So I read a lot of like technology and strategy blogs that I mentioned in the list of resources. Like for example, things like let's say Uber seemed to have a massive advantage over Lyft at some point. Like why wasn't they able to take over? Like that kind of like why question is like very social sciencey kind of type of question. So you can see the similarity there. I mean, the second reason is frankly, I have my wife is in business. She's in business school, so like we talk a lot about business topics. I think the translation is also particularly helped by the fact that my manager was a political science PhD and all of my teammates are PhDs. So culturally, it was very easy to fit in. Like, I mean, we talk about our time in grad school, and when we have challenges, we make analogies to like similar situation in grad school. So that was very easy as well.
Is that a common occurrence now in tech, that there are teams that are made up mostly of PhDs?
Yeah, so that goes back to the question like what type of data science. For my type of data science, yes, my team is almost all PhDs, but that's not the norm anymore. Data science is very broad, and many people now able to get into the job with like master and even BA, BS. Yeah.
So would you say that you mostly have learned some of your skills that you use all the time on the job? You talked a little bit about how much of your PhD training you use in your current job. Were you able to gain those skills prior to coming to Facebook that you use all the time in your work there? Or have you learned a great deal on the job or had training once you were in the industry?
Yeah, so I say it's reasonable to say that for most jobs, the technical foundation you have to know before the jobs, and that's how you pass the interview as well. Once you're inside, the thing that you learn is more about like the business model of the company, how do you influence people. That's more specific to the company. So that's you learn after the job. And also like throughout your career, you learn how to manage people, you learn leadership skill. That's also on the job. I'm very thankful that my job has allows us time to upgrade our technical skills as well. So like I actually we have a study group just like in grad school. We read papers, we read textbook. So yeah, but that's quite unique to my team, I think.
Very interesting. Is there any other advice that you would want to share with the social scientists who are on the call? It seems like from the questions, there's kind of a lot of anxiety about trying to be a social scientist breaking into data science. Do you have any particular advice for those folks that you can share?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is more difficult to be frank, because most employers, when, as I mentioned, when they look for, I mean, employers, they are not some omniscient people who they just people who are desperately looking for employees, and they will go on LinkedIn and they search, and they don't know to search for political science PhD, and right there you are out of the race. So yeah, so there are two angles here. The first is you have to have the skills, and the second, you have to market yourself. On the first point, I think I taking classes at Duke from the staff department, from the CS department are great. I did both of those. And then on the second part, it's more difficult. Basically, I lucked out because of my manager. But what you can do is to do the Insight Data Science program, or you can reach out to people like me. There are more social science PhD in tech nowadays. So you yourself can search for political science PhD at Facebook or economists at Facebook, and then reach out to those people to talk. Yeah.
Great suggestion. So would it be all right if graduate students and postdocs who are on this call today reach out to you over LinkedIn to connect, or over the alumni network?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Great, good. Let me ask you a little question. You brought up your wife. I remember when you were in grad school, you were kind of commuting, shuttling back and forth to Washington, D.C. a lot.
Right.
There while you were in grad school. Can you talk a little bit about work-life balance?
Like my work-life balance now?
Yes, now. And yes,
Yeah.
what's it like in the tech industry? Because I think sometimes we have a perception that, you know, the tech industry can be really intense and might be 80 or 90 hours a week. Is that your experience?
I don't think that's true. I work 40 hours most of my so I work the same hours as I did in grad school. I say that my anxiety level is lower because like in grad school, like you have like projects are longer, there are a higher degree of uncertainty. Advisors are supposed to help you, but they don't really. In contrast, if you're in good team, I mean, I think Facebook is a well-run organization in the sense that managers actually are incentivized to help you a lot. Their promotion is graded based on like how well they help you, and then so you get a lot of support. On the topic of like the hours of working, I think you are allowed to work a lot. It's a very well, at least at Facebook, I think it's a very meritocratic system in the sense that your promotion, your bonus is all tied to your level impact. So if you want to work a lot and get a lot of impact and get promoted earlier, that's all. You are encouraged to do so. But most people, the norm is work normal hours and progress at the normal pace. Yeah, and there's also a lot of like, so like of course like the free food at Google and Facebook are sort of infamous, but like there's a meme of that the companies do so that they entice you to work more. I don't think that's really true. It's just convenience. People go home at 5 to their families. Yeah.
That's really good to hear. I had a question in the chat. Can you talk a little bit about whether you were an international student when you were looking for a job, and whether that impacted your path and opportunities for you?
Yeah, great question. So I was going to bring it up if no one asked anyway. So for people who don't know in the room, international students have to like not only find a job but also go through the H-1B lottery, and like there is like only about a third of people win the lottery every year. If you don't win the lottery, you just go home, and there's no like you just go home. So it is a great source of stress and anxiety. Two things that helped me. One is I did the stats master, which got me a STEM degree. So I have three tries at the lottery instead of one. That's great. The other one is tech companies in general, especially for like engineering role. They will sponsor your H1B and sponsor your green card immediately. They want to retain talent. So that's a huge factor for people who want to stay in the US.
Excellent. Does anybody want to ask any follow-up questions about that? Okay, perfect. So we've come to, I think we've addressed the questions that came in through the registration now. And so I want to open it up to the group. Anybody want to come off mute or type a question in the chat?
I actually have two topics I want to cover myself.
Oh, perfect, please.
Yeah, so two questions that I always want to ask people when I was a PhD student, but like in polite conversation, people don't often ask. The first one is money. There is a website called levels.fyi. It lists the salaries at all the tech companies, and the salaries are very accurate. You see that like in an entry level software engineer at Google out of college makes $200,000 a year. That's correct. It's not like I mean, I've been inside the company, so I know that all the reported incomes are correct. So that's a huge factor. I mean, people don't talk about it, but for me at least, it's a very important factor. It means I can live with my wife. It means I can afford many things. So just want to put it out there. The second point is like the ethics of working for Facebook. I mean, a lot of I suspect that a lot of people have reservations about that, but obviously when they reach out to me, they don't ask me that question because they don't know how I react. So I want to proactively address this question. So technology is amoral. It's an amoral force. It can be used for good or for evil. And Facebook is a big place, so I don't doubt that there are some teams that are causing harm to the world and some teams that are doing good for the world. You don't have to be in the teams that are doing harm. You can choose to be in the teams that are doing good for the world. And to avoid working for Facebook or avoid working for tech because of some of the harm that they do is a bit silly, I think. I mean, I pay tax to the US government. The US government causes violence in many places. But I'm still happy to be here, and I hope to make the US a better place. Same logic with working for Facebook. The other point on Facebook is now that I work on the inside, my opinion of advertising improves a lot. So I work on marketing science, right? And obviously before Facebook, I hate ads. I think it's annoying. I think it encourages consumerism. But now I see the other side of the equation where, let's say that you are a small business owner, like the P&G of the world, they can run TV advertising. But if you are like like a mom and pop shop, you can't afford to do that. The only way you reach your customer is through like running Facebook ads. So in a way, Facebook is fighting for the small guys in a way. Obviously, like they don't do that out of their goodness of their heart because of money, but effectively they are helping the small guys. And I guess the final thing is ultimately Facebook is beholden to its users. So a few years back, Facebook changed its algorithm so that like more of the content that you see are from your friends and family. And that's because the users want it. So it's not like Facebook is like fighting for some. Facebook is just a money making machine. They make money in any ways that they can. And the way to make money is to keep users on the site. And so if something that is bad for users, then they wouldn't do it. So like sometimes people compare Facebook with like a tobacco companies where they actively do harm to their users. But users demand healthier things. And you see this in the food industry too. Like when consumers demand healthier things, the food industry make healthier things. So it's very amoral in that sense. Yeah.
Thank you for addressing those questions, which I'm sure were on many people's minds. Out of curiosity, what do you think is going to happen in the Bay Area with this change to remote work being much more acceptable? What do you see among your colleagues at Facebook? Are people moving to different places?
Yeah, a lot of people already left, and Facebook allows fully remote option nowadays. So a lot of people left. I mean, it's a great deal because you can get Bay Area salary by being in some other states. Yeah. For junior people, and by junior I mean like fresh graduates, you wouldn't be able to do the remote option because the company wants to train you, and the companies want you to be on site so that like you can interact with people and develop a culture before you move to fully remote. But like after one or two promotions, you'll be eligible to move out. Yeah.
It's really helpful information to know. Fatima, or Fatima, I apologize. Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could speak more about your master's in stats, maybe how you got into it, and how or why it helped you with your job. Was this about the 3 years of OPT?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. So the reason, so I got into stats because like I think you're a political science PhD, but as in political science nowadays is very quantitative. So initially I took the classes just because that's the skills I need for my research. But as I started thinking about going into an industry, stats seems like valuable skill, and they are. So I decided to formally get a degree, both for the skills, but also for the STEM OPT. Yeah, that was a very strategic decision. I had to fight really hard to get a degree, but yeah, it was very important to my success.
When you
Okay, awesome. Oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say, when you say you had to fight very hard for it, what do you mean?
Oh yeah, so so bureaucratically, it's not a form. It's not given that political science PhD can get a master from stats. I just had to like talk to stats professor, talk to Dean Paula, and like that's how I was able to like push it through. It's just not that there wasn't a formal process, so I just had to like nudge people, force people to like let me in, that sort of things. It wasn't at all given that I would be able to get it.
I think that's very helpful. And for anybody who's not in political science on the call, when he says Dean Paula, he's talking about Dean Paula McLean, who's dean of the graduate school and a professor of political science. We've got maybe one more question if somebody else has a question. Oh, sorry, Su Yan.
Oh, hi, An. I'm also a political science major in my second year. And I was wondering, as a follow-up question, when you started your stats masters, and if you also, would you recommend a comp sci MA or a stats MA?
Yeah, I think, I mean, you want to do either one. I guess I don't know how the situation is like at Duke or at political science department anymore, but if it seems difficult to me to justify getting a CS degree. With a stats degree, at least you can say that like I'm doing these things for my research, and it's true. Like I mean, my dissertation is very stats heavy. So in a practical sense, in terms of like convincing the department, getting a stats degree is probably easier. In terms of like job prospect, I think they are equally valuable. And yeah, I think you should at least get one and take classes for both.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yep.
I hope you can see the chat.
Yep.
Somebody thanking you for being their TA many years ago. It's great to see you being successful. Well, I think that's a wonderful note to end things on today. Thank you so much to Ein. It's terrific to see you so successful and so well landed today. Please join me in a round of virtual applause, and we thank everybody for coming today. Take good care, everyone.
Thank you.